Boom! Hey, I'm Thundercloud, here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame with Bruce. Hey Bruce. Hi James. Not James, I'm Thundercloud. Okay, Thundercloud. Right, I'm Thundercloud, here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after it rains. Everybody knows Mum calls me James, and this is Bruce. Say hello, Bruce. Hello, Bruce. Yeah, don't take it. Oh, well, yeah, you're literal. Anyway, welcome to Chillin Tuesday, Poetcast, on this date, Tuesday, the 3rd of January, 2023. Yes, it's the third day, the first month of 2023. And, well, let's begin with business, important business first. Let's acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I broadcast, the Kamilaroi people, the Banbai people, acknowledge the continuing connection to the land of the elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. All right, look, I've got a hat. It's a top hat. It's a really good hat. It's top, yeah, actually. And if you have a look up here close, really close, like on the front of it, yeah, see that? That is my Australian Bush Poets Association badge, which means I'm a member. I'm a member, yes, of the Australian Bush Poets Association. So let's start with the start. Poetry news. What's in poetry news coming up? Now, if you've got any poetry events that you would like me to share on poetry news, email them to oneenglish1@gmail.com, and those ones are both numerals. Coming up, so let me tell you about the Banjo Patterson Australian Poetry Festival in Orange first. That's from the 17th to the 26th of August. During that, there are plenty of poetry events. There's the Milton Show, Bush Poetry. There's the Man from Snowy River Bush Poetry Music Competition. Well, that's in February. But yes, the Banjo Patterson one is the really important one. There's also the Australian Bush Poetry Association National Bush Poetry Performance Championships in Orange as well. And that is on the 23rd and the 24th of February. The closing date is the 13th of February. What else is coming up? In March, 17th of March is the closing date for the Oracles of the Bush written and performance competitions in Tenterfield. The 30th of March to the 2nd of April is the Oracles of the Bush written and performance competitions in Tenterfield. 21st of March, the Cloncurry Prize Poetry Competition. So if you want to, and then coming up in April, we've got the Man from Snowy River Bush Poetry Competition in Quarrel, and the end of the Oracles of the Bush. So that's all up there on the Australian Bush Poetry Association's website, and that is www.abpa, Australian Bush Poetry Association, abpa.org.au. All right, what else have we got happening in poetry news? Well, first of all, we've got Wednesday Words here, as usual, every Wednesday from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Open mic night. Anyone's welcome to come. Have a listen. You don't have to be a poet or a panda. Just come and have a listen and a gander. Just come along. But if you have got something you want to share, you are more than welcome to jump on up here, recite your own, to read someone else's, whatever it is. We don't mind. It's a safe space. We're not going to judge you. You might be a bit shaky when you get up here, but don't worry, because practice makes perfect, and the shakes go when you do it often enough. All right, well, so as well as Wednesday Words open mic night, we've got the Guyra, oops, I dropped something here, this is very important. We've got the Guyra Lamb and Potato Festival coming up here from the 11th to the 23rd of January, here in Guyra, out in the street out here. But to supplement that, because there'll be music and a whole lot of stuff happening, there is here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, Thundercloud's Australian Poetry Show with me, Thundercloud Repairian, and special poet guests, one of whom I would be imagining would be perhaps Steve Wordsmith or Ashley Albanese or Gladys Wilson or some of our other famous poets here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. But that's on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 18th, 19th, 20th and 21st of January at 2 p.m. It's to supplement the Lamb and Potato. So come along, and actually you're going to get a special sneak preview tonight, because that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be reading and getting ready for my rehearsal and my recitation skills. So I've got to learn a whole lot of poetry from memory, but hey, that's what memories are for. All right, what else is happening important? I'll let you know a bit more about that later. What is really important, I just got off the old telephono, the smartphone, to Nick, all the way in the little island of Guernsey. It's part of Great Britain, I think, or the UK, I'm not too sure, but it's closer to France. It's a little island, and they have this Guernsey Poetry Festival, Guernsey Literary Festival every year. But as part of that, they have the Guernsey International Poetry Competition. Now, they're poems of 14 lines, which is sonnet length, or less, and having spoke to Nick there, 9 a.m. in Guernsey, 8 p.m. here in Guyra. So he was pretty lucid, so were I, and there was no sleep deprivation there. But yes, he was telling me about this Guernsey International Poetry Competition, and that's because, and I'll leave the links in the description down there in this video so you can join it. But see, this fella dropped in today, and he really wanted to talk to me, and his name was Eddie Parry, had an English accent. He said, blah, 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 and told me all about this Guernsey International Poetry Competition, because he was there, and last year he had to photocopy all of the bits of paper for all the judges. Now, the closing date, it's international, so if you're close to Guernsey, send it off today. If you're a bit further away, well, you better send it off today, like express post on a Concorde or something, because you really, it's they take hard copies. So now, if you want to enter the poems on the move at the Guernsey Literary Festival, well, look up this poemsonthemove.com, just all one word. Poems on the Move, P-O-E-M-S on the move. Yeah, get your entries in for the Guernsey Literary Festival, Guernsey International Poetry Competition. And if you don't get it in this year, keep an eye out for it next year, because I think they start taking entries from around about September, according to Nick. The special guest judge this year is Jackie Kay, a Scottish born and bred poet, the author of, amongst other books, The Adoption Papers, which won the Forward Prize, the Red Dust Road, winner of the Scottish Book of Year Award, Trumpet and Acosta shortlisted Fier. She's a former Chancellor of the University of Salford and Professor of Creative Writing. So there we go. They've got a great judge there, very well qualified. And yeah, so last year they had over 2,000 entries. It's only £4 an entry, so it's not too much. Yeah, so get into it. Get into some of those poetry competitions, all right, now let's move on, because that's what we're here for. Poetry, Chillin Tuesday. I'll tell you a bit about other stuff later, like Australian Poetry Hall of Fame t-shirts available on the website, or Guyra Lamb and Potato t-shirts are also available on the website. But first things first, let's get on to poetry. And of course, let's take the hat off. It's not very comfortable, really. Oddgeroo Noonuccal, born Kath Rusker, or Kath Walker, was an Aboriginal Australian political activist, artist and educator who campaigned for Aboriginal rights. She was best known for poetry and the first Aboriginal Australian to publish a book of verse. This one is particularly, I'm fond of, Municipal Gum. It has a lot of meaning for myself, my sons. But it was written just after the 1967 referendum, when Aborigines had been granted to become citizens of Australia, because before that they were not citizens, they were not allowed to vote or anything like that. Amazing, isn't it? Yeah, right. So this is called Municipal Gum by Oddgeroo, Noonuccal. Gum tree. In the city street, hard bitumen around your feet. Rather, you should be in the cool world of leafy forest halls and wild bird calls. Here, it seems to me like that poor cart horse, castrated, broken, a thing wronged, strapped and buckled, its held prolonged, whose hung head and listless mien express its hopelessness. Municipal Gum, it is dolorous to see you thus, set in your black grass of bitumen. Oh, fellow citizen, what have they done to us? All right, a wonderful piece of poetry there. All right, well, you may, obviously if you're an Australian, you've probably, I won't make any assumptions, heard of Henry Lawson. Him, alongside Banjo Patterson, was one of our greatest poets, and well, Henry was more a short story writer. But like all people, he did have a mum, yes, and her name was Louisa Lawson, and she was known as the mother of womanhood suffrage, because during her married life made her a feminist, and she spent 35 years fighting for women's rights. So in 1902, when Womanhood Suffrage League of New South Wales celebrated victory at last by obtaining the vote for women, Louisa was referred to as the mother of womanhood suffrage. So yes, Henry comes out of that kind of good stock. All right, this is called A Woman's Love by Louisa Lawson. I cared not what their failings were, thy faults I would not see. I only knew I loved thee well, and thought thee true to me. I shunned amid life's busy crowd those who would defame, for oh, it pained a trusting heart to hear men idly blame. I would not heed when meddling friends would whisper aught of thee. I thought not one so seeming true could e'er a traitor be. And when they knew no of thy tone, oh, of love and fond caress that would my soul responsive move with its great tenderness, now how hungry my aching heart craved the world or smile that did my thoughts despondent groan from my sad life beguile. They knew not, and nor mortal shall, all thou hast been to me. But I forgive thee, all because thou once wert true to me. All right, well, yes, Henry Lawson had a mum, and her name was Louisa Lawson. She had a son, Henry Lawson. Henry did wander around a bit. He didn't stay always in the same place, and he was sent out to the bush to dry out because he had a bit of a problem with a bottle. This one was written here in 1902 by Henry Lawson. And I'll just have a drink before that and wet me whistle. you what thunderclouds love. This one's called the Wanderlight, and it's actually can be sung as well. The Wanderlight by Lawson. And they heard the tent poles clatter, and the fly in twain was torn. 'Tis the soiled rag of a tatter of the tent where I was born. And what matters it, I wonder, brick or stone or calico, or a bush you were born under when it happened long ago? And my beds were camp beds and tramp beds and damp beds, and my beds were dry beds on drought-stricken ground, hard beds and soft beds and wide beds and narrow, for my beds were strange beds the wide world around. And the old hag seemed to ponder. 'Twas my mother told me so, and she said that I would wander where but few would think to go. He'll fly the haunts of tailors, he'll cross the oceans wide, for his fathers, they were sailors, all on his good father's side. Behind me, before me, oh, my roads are stormy, the thunder of skies and the sea's sullen sound, the coastal liner, the English or foreign, the stateroom or steerage, the wide world round. And the old hag, she seemed troubled as she bent above the bed. He will dream things and he'll see things to come true when he's dead. He'll see things all too plainly, and his fellows will deride. For his mothers, they were gypsies, all on his good mother's side. And my dreams are strange dreams, are daydreams, are grey dreams, and my dreams are wild dreams and old dreams and new. They haunt me and daunt me with the fears of the morrow. But brothers, they doubt me, but my dreams come true. And so I was born of fathers from where ice-bound harbours are, men whose strong limbs never rested and whose blue eyes saw afar, till for gold one left the ocean, seeking over plain and hill, and so I was born of mothers whose deep minds were never still. I rest not, 'tis best not, the world is a wide one, and caged for an hour I pace to and fro. I see things and dream things and plan while I'm sleeping. I wander forever and dream as I go. I've stood by Table Mountain on the line at Cape Town and watched the sunset fading from the roads that I marked down. And I looked out with my brothers from the heights behind Bombay, gazing northwest and eastward over roads I'll tread someday. For my ways are strange ways, and new ways and old ways, and deep ways and steep ways, and highways and low. I'm at home and at ease on a track that I know not, and restless and lost on a road that I know. Henry Lawson, The Wanderlight. Fantastic poem, lovely rhyme and rhythm to it and cadence. This one is more of a traditional Aussie bush poetry yarn with a gag at the end, called Mickety and Mulga. It was written by T. Ranken in 1936. Well, he worked with us at Wanderlight, old Mickety Mulga Jim, and we'd all have gone blue and mouldy if it hadn't have been for him. He'd keep us yarning at the fire and laughing by the hour at his amusing anecdotes. Oh, by George, he had the power. He told us up in Queensland, where he'd never go again, he'd come to some dry old waterhole upon a 10-mile plain. The tank was dry, Jim was dry, but by a happy thought, he wrung his empty water bag and he got about a quart. But he couldn't find a stick of wood to boil his billy by, so he struck a match to the grass, which then was pretty dry. Well, he held the billy to the flame with a bit of fencing wire. But he had to go to follow it, so rapid ran the fire. 5 mile across the flaming plain he raced the fire, did he? But when at last the billy boiled, he'd forgot to add the tea. Yeah, okay. We need some canned laughter at the end just to, say, okay, time to laugh now, you can giggle. Okay, now, Adam Lindsay Gordon here we go. Big book. Big book. All right. He was born in, Charlton Kings near Cheltenham, England. And he came in 1833, and he arrived in Australia as a 20-year-old. Unfortunately, he was sort of like he had a very sad demeanour, and he ended up killing himself. So he didn't last too long, but Adam Lindsay Gordon did write some fantastic poetry when he was alive. Yeah. He was also elected to the South Australian Parliament. He had a disastrous land speculation in Mount Gravatt, moved to Ballarat, he took his own life in Brighton in 1870. Too bad, eh? He wasn't that old. But this is from Lightning and Tempest by Adam Lindsay Gordon. The spring wind passed through the forest and whispered low in the leaves, and the cedar tossed her head, and the oak stood firm in his pride. The spring wind passed through the town, through the house tops, casements and eaves, and whispered low in the hearts of men, and the men replied, singing, let us rejoice in the light of our glory and beauty and might. Let us follow our own devices and foster our own desires. As firm as our oaks in our pride, as our cedars fair in our sight, we stand like the trees of the forest that brave the frosts and the fires. The storm went forth to the forest. The plague went forth to the town. And the men fell down to the plague as the trees fell down to the gale. And their bloom was a ghastly pallor, and their smile was a ghastly frown, and the song of their hearts was changed to a wild, disconsolate wail, crying, God, we have sinned, we have sinned, we are bruised, we are shorn, we are thinned. Our strength is turned to derision, our pride laid low in the dust. Our cedars are cleft by thy lightnings, and our oaks are strewed by winds, and we fall on our faces, seeking thine aid, though thy wrath is just. Yeah, from Lightning and Tempest by Adam Lindsay Gordon. Yes, I think I've purposely gone through and selected, some of the better poems, of course. Well, why wouldn't I? Of our famous Australian poets. All right. Now, one poet that you may not know of, but you probably look at him quite often if you're in Australia and you get a $50 note, is David Unaipon. Now, he was known as the Black Leonardo da Vinci because he invented the cross-cut shears for shearing sheep. He also invented the idea of a helicopter based on the flight of a boomerang. Amazing fella. He was born in 18 1872, died in 1867. He was a preacher, poet, author, inventor, he was just really intelligent, amazing fella. Anyway, a real short one here from him. David Unaipon, Song of the Platypus. Give me more grubs as the water ripples, and make for me bread of the nardoo seed. Do this often and often as the sun does rise, and I shall gather in the shade of night the food thou shalt throw into the water, hunting place of mine, because I'm hiding all day, fearing that someone may call up the lightning, thunder and rain. Song of the Platypus by David Unaipon. We're going to go to Victor Daley now. Gosh, I had some long names back in the day. Victor James William Patrick Daley. Victor James William Patrick Daley. That's 5 names. That's just too many names for anyone's use. Like, how many is he going to use? Vic and Daley. That's it. Maybe Victor J. Daley as his Simon. But anyway. Okay. Now, Victor Daley had a very long name, and he wrote poetry. All right. This one's called Sunset Fantasy. Spellbound by a sweet fantasy, and at even glow I stand, beside an opaline strange sea that rings a sunset land. The rich lights fade out one by one, and like a peony, drowning in wine, the crimson sun sinks down in that strange sea. His wake across the ocean floor in a long glory lies, like a gold wave way to the shore of some sea paradise. My dream flies after him, and I am in another land. The sun sets in another sky, and we sit hand in hand. Grey eyes look into mine, such eyes I think the angels are, soft as the soft light in the skies when shines the morning star, and tremulous as morn when thin gold lights begin to glow, revealing the bright soul within as dawn the sun below. So hand in hand we watch the sun burn down the western deeps, dreaming a charmed dream as one who in enchantment sleeps. A dream of how we twain some day, careless of map or chart, will both take ship and sail away into the sunset's heart. Our ship shall be of sandal built, like ships in old world tales, carven with cunning art and gilt, and winged with scented sails of silver silk, whereon the red great gladioli burn, a rainbow flag at her masthead, a rose flag at her stern, and perching on the point above, where from the pennon blows the figure of a flying dove, and in her beak a rose. And from the fading land the breeze shall bring us blowing low old odours and old memories and airs of long ago. A melody that has no words of mortal speech apart, yet touching all the deepest chords that tremble in the heart. A scented, long blown over sea, and though from boughs of bloom a wind harp in a lilac tree breathe music and perfume, and we no more with longings pale will smile to hear it blow, I in the shadow of the sail and you in the sunset glow. For with the fading land our fond old fears shall all fade out, paled by the light from shores beyond, the dread of death or doubt. And from a gloomy cloud above, when death his shadow flings, the spirit of immortal love will shield us with his wings. He is the Lord of dreams divine, and lures us with his smiles along the splendour opaline and to the blessed isles. A Sunset Fantasy by Victor James Daley, with a few other names in there. All right. Well, look, here we go. C.J. Dennis. Well, that was just the short version of his name, because his real name was Clarence Michael James Stanislaus Dennis. That's really long. That's got like many letters in it. And he just shortened it to C.J. Clarence James Dennis. But it was Clarence Michael James Stanislaus Dennis. Yeah. He was a kind of a surrealist poet, to tell you the truth. He was born in 1876. He died on the 22nd of June 1938. So surrealism poetry sort of began through the 20s and into the 30s. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was influenced by the surrealism poets, but I'm just making an assumption because, anyway, the Glugs of Gosh. Let him who is minded to meet with a glug pluck 3 hardy hairs from a rabbit-skin rug, blow one to the south and one to the west, and then burn another and swallow the rest. And who shall explain? 'Tis the talk of a fool. He's a glug of the old Gosh school, and he'll climb a tree if the east wind blows in a casual way, just to show he knows. Oh, tickle his toes, oh, tickle his toes. And don't blame me if you come to blows. Old Gosh Rhyme by C.J. Dennis. Oh, Mollie McNutt. Mollie McNutt was an Australian poet whose work appeared in many newspapers and was published in one book after her death. But when she was alive, she won 2 competitions, the Gould League of Bird Lovers in 1912 and 1913, and the Bathurst Centenary Literary Competition, the Sydney Mail's Australian Remounts Competition, her poetry appeared in many newspapers, including the Quarrel, and she was a teacher until she married Mr. McNutt, and then she sort of resigned, but she didn't live that old either. She only lived to about 36, I think. She died from consumption, otherwise known as tuberculosis. The Quarrel by Mollie McNutt. 2 little maidens fell out one day, angrily turned from each other's way. Such little friends they had been, you see. Soon they were sorry as they could be. Neither was ready to own the blame. Daily the trouble still worse became. School lessons suffered, and so one day 2 little girls were debarred from play. Someone who came to the schoolroom door smiled as if pleased at the sight she saw. Ripples of gold with curls of brown, 2 little heads on a desk laid down, tiptoed away with a radiant face, leaving them happy in their disgrace. The Quarrel by Mollie McNutt. Oh, well, yeah, I like this one too. Hugh McCrae, also born in 1876. There's a real good year for poets being born, eh? C.J. Dennis, Hugh McCrae. I'm not sure, was it Henry Lawson was born about that time as well? Not too sure. And banjo? No, yeah, I'm pretty sure, hey. All right, Hugh McCrae was a good writer. He also starred as the poet Adam Lindsay Gordon in W.J. Lincoln's 1916 feature film, which would have been a silent film. That's really interesting. Must have been about poetry in silence. Okay. All right, this is the Song of the Rain, though, by Hugh McCrae. This one I really like. Rain. Night. Oh, sorry, Song of the Rain. Night. And the pleasure of the candlelight, old brown books and the kind, fine face of the clock. Fogged in the veils of the fire, it's cuddling talk. The cat, greening her eyes on the flame-lit mat, wickedly wakeful she yawns at the rain, bending the roses over the pane, and a bird in my heart begins to sing over and over the same sweet thing, safe in the house with my boyhood's love, and our children asleep in the attic above. All right, Zora Cross, let's move on. She was born in 1890 and passed on in 1964. She was born at Eagle Farm in Brisbane. She was well known for her serialised novels and children's verse, but yes, she also, her poetry, My Muse, written in 1917. My muse is a minx with a spell for a smile. She gallops a wagon of whims through the skies, and teasing, capricious and pranks all the while, she pours upon me who would sing to her eyes. She coaxes me on like a siren at play, then leaves me alone with a shadow to doze. As faithless as Venus she flits with a fae, or marries her moods to the rim of a rose. I went to her house, and I opened the door to peep at the exquisite corridors there, and thousands of dreams that were strewing the floor, cried, constancy can only win the most fair, and so on a lily-white doorstep I wait, or wander away with her lover in glee. Now faithful, now fickle, I toy with my fate, for I am a maiden as willful as she. I really like that one. I'm going to move on to A.D. Hope's Tiger now. A.D. Hope was born in 1907 and he was educated at Sydney and Oxford University, and he also went on to become, what was he, something I think at ANU in literary anyway. Tiger. The paper tigers roar at noon. The sun is hot, the sun is high. They roar in chorus, not in tune, their plaintive savage hunting cry. Oh, when you hear them, stop your ears and clench your lids and bite your tongue. The harmless paper tiger bears strong fascination for the young. His forest is the busy street, his den's the forum and the mart. He drinks no blood, he tastes no meat, he riddles and corrupts the heart. But when the dusk begins to creep, from tree to tree, from door to door, the jungle tiger wakes from sleep and utters his authentic roar. It bursts the night and shakes the stars till one breaks blazing from the sky. Then listen, if to meet it soars your heart's reverberating cry. My child, then put aside your fear, unbar the door and walk outside. The real tiger waits you there. His golden eyes shall be your guide. And should he spare you in his wrath, the world and all the worlds are yours. And should he leap the jungle path and clasp you with his bloody jaws, then say as his divine embrace destroys the mortal part of you, I too am of that royal race, who do what we are born to do. Oh, absolutely powerful poem. Should be, and this is, me repeating other person's hearsay, but read or understood by young people leaving high school, even before high school. Because it's like the paper tiger and the real tiger, it's about, one is about, doing the job just to get the money, to push the pen, something you hate just for the money. But the authentic tiger is the one that goes out and follows his path, makes the world his oyster, just like I'm doing here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. You have so much potential. You are in control of your life. Cause and effect. Make it happen. All right. Judith Wright. Yes. Another very, very well-known poet, born 1915, passed in 2000. She was a prolific poet, a critic, a short story writer, published more than 50 books. She was also an uncompromising environmentalist and social activist. And she believed a poet should be concerned with national and social problems. Well, okay, it's a belief. That's her belief. She's entitled to do her belief. Okay, but this one's called Lyrebirds. Now, a lyrebird is an Australian bird, hard to see. They mimic other birds. They mimic wood chopping and all kinds of stuff. And they've got this big, beautiful tail like a lyre, like the instrument. Looks like a big harp. Over the west side of the mountains, that's lyrebird country. I could go down there, they say, in the early morning and I'd see them. 10 years, and I've never gone. I'll never go. I'll never get to see the lyrebirds, the few, the shy, the fabulous, the dying poets. I should see there, if I lay there in the dew, first a single movement, like a water drop falling, then stillness, then a brown head, brown eyes, a splendid bird bearing like a crest the symbol of his art, the high symmetrical shape of the perfect lyre. I should hear that master practicing his art. No, I've never gone. Some things ought to be left secret, alone. Some things, birds like walking fables, ought to inhabit nowhere but the reverence of the heart. Birds like walking fables. What a fantastic line. Birds like walking fables. Yeah, wow. Ooh, another one of my favourite poets. Well, he's got a few good poems. I can't say because I don't know all his poetry, but some of the ones that I do know I love. And this is Les Murray, who only passed away in 2019, was it? I think so, eh? Or recently, yeah. Anyway, this one's called Rainwater Tank, and it's sort of, you put yourself in the shoes of the farmer out on the land, gets his water from a tank, and if there's a drought, Rainwater Tank. Empty rings, when tapped, give tongue. Rings that are tense with water talk. As he sounds them rung by rung, Joe Mitchell's reddened knuckles walk. The cattle dog's head sinks down a notch, and another notch beside the tank. And Mitchell's boy with an old jack plane lifts moustache from a plank. From the puddle that the tank has dripped, hens peck glimmerings and up tilt their heads to shape the quickness down. Petunias live on what gets spilt. The tank stand spider adds a spittle thread to her portrait of her soul, pencil grey and stacked like shillings. Out of a banker's paper roll stands the tank, roof water drinker. The downpipe stares drought into it. Briefly the kitchen tap turns on, then off, but the tank says, debit, debit. Yeah. Oh, okay, look. I said it's the Australian Poetry Show. Look, let me tell you about some things that are coming up here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Yeah. So, on Friday, January the 20th, from 7 p.m, we have the fantastic hypnotist Wayne Donnelly coming to the Lamb and Potato Festival. Now, last time he came, he had everyone in stitches. It's fantastic. You can get your tickets online now by going to Eventbrite and or to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. And we're one of the hosts there, and you can follow the link on the Facebook from the Facebook page. All right. The other thing that's happening, we've got the Guyra Lamb and Potato Festival from the 11th to the 23rd of January, and during that time, there'll be Daley, the Australian Poetry Show here from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, with yours truly, Thundercloud, Steve, Gladys, and any other guest poets that come along. Plus, there'll be the opportunity for walk-up poets after the show. Now, that's on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th, as well as the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st of January. So it's a limited season, and it's at 2 o'clock every day. Tickets are only $9, concessions are $8. Now, and one more thing. Oh yes, this is so exciting. Have a look at this. Have a look at these. Look at these. Look. See these? See that beautiful t-shirt? You can't really because it's a bit blurry. That's a Guyra Lamb and Potato t-shirt, and that is too. And there's a really funky shirt, Guyra Lamb shirt, and here's a potato shirt. Yeah, haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate. Guyra Lamb and Potato Festival 2023. Yeah, and you can get them here online from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame .com.au/store website, yeah, and order them online, and then they're print-on-demand products, so they'll get printed and they'll get sent straight out to you. That way I don't need to carry any stock, and we have no wastage, which in this day and age of wastage and whatever, why not have print-on-demand and products, of course. All right, we're going to move away from Australian poetry now into a very famous American poet, Emily Dickinson, born in 1830 and died in 1886. She wasn't very known in her lifetime, but she has been since come to be known as one of the most important figures of American literary, or American poetry, I ought to say. It's called This Quiet Dust Was Gentlemen and Ladies by Emily Dickinson. And some dust. This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies, and lads and girls, was laughter and ability and sighing and frocks and curls. This passive place, a summer's nimble mansion where bloom and bees fulfilled their oriental circuit, then ceased like these. Yeah, amazing that one. Yeah, it's all about the ephemeral nature of everything. You know, we all come from dust, we go back to dust, ashes to ashes, earth to earth, dust to dust. Yeah. Okay. Here's something that yours truly, Thundercloud, wrote back in July 2020, just after I'd arrived in Guyra here to open the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. Yes. Guyra's strength gets pretty cold here. The sun shines, the winds blow,